I never thought I'd return home again. Not really. It had been 8 years since I left the suburbs of Portland behind, the pale gray house with flaking paint. The uneven brick walkway that always seemed to trip me when I was small. The smell of scorched coffee and lemon pledge in the kitchen, and most of all, the silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the cold, pressurized kind that settles when words are swallowed too long. My name is Natalie Park. I'm 32 now, and the last time I sat at my family's Christmas dinner table, I was 24, newly graduated, invisible, and wondering if I'd ever be more than the quiet girl they tolerated. That year, I left without saying goodbye. I boarded a red-eye flight to New York with 2 duffel bags, a scholarship offer in hand, and a heart so full of questions it nearly burst. I never looked back, not until one evening last fall. It was late October. The sky outside my Brooklyn apartment was the color of steel wool. I was curled up on the couch, sipping peppermint tea, reviewing a draft architecture map for an AI-integrated security system I was leading. My life now was clean lines and confident deadlines. My name carried weight in the circles I once only dreamed of entering. So when my phone lit up and I saw Olivia Choi, my cousin, I nearly dropped the mug. Olivia was the only one who had my number. The only one who had ever tried to keep in touch without strings attached. Natalie, she said softly. Her voice had that cautious tone. The one people use when they're about to unearth something buried. Aunt Clara and Uncle Daniel, they want you to come home for Christmas. I didn't respond. My heart was racing, not out of excitement, out of suspicion. Why now, after everything? They've been asking around, Olivia added. I think they really mean it this time. I thanked her, hung up, and just sat there. The tea had gone cold in my hands. You see, my parents weren't monsters. They never hit me. They didn't yell much, but they made sure I knew where I stood. Just slightly outside the circle. A few degrees colder than the rest. My older brother, Marcus, was their pride. Athletic, extroverted, always saying the right thing at the right time. The golden boy. He was the one whose kindergarten finger paintings were framed. I was the one whose A+ report cards got stacked under old newspapers. I was never grounded, because to be grounded, you had to be noticed. My earliest memory of realizing I was different came in Dr. Keaton's office, my childhood therapist. I was 12, small for my age, all knobby knees and bitten fingernails. I'd just finished crying through an entire session when Dr. Keaton turned to my parents and said calmly, "Your daughter isn't acting out. She's shutting down, because she feels unseen." My mother had pursed her lips. "We love both our children equally," she said with the strained poise of a woman being critiqued at a country club luncheon. But I knew she was lying. Love, in our house, was loud and sparkly in public. It looked like trophies and front yard banners and stadium claps. I didn't shine like Marcus. I observed, I read, I tinkered, I got lost in the rhythm of code when I was 15, a lucky accident. Really, I'd followed the wrong hallway during lunch one day and stumbled into the robotics club. The teacher let me stay. That room became the only place in school where my silence wasn't a liability. It was a strength. By 17, I'd built my first AI-based inventory tracking bot. By 18, I had full ride offers from 3 tech schools. I picked one in New York and never told my parents until 2 weeks before departure. They didn't throw a going-away party. My mother handed me a sweater that smelled faintly of mothballs. "It gets cold out east," she'd said. Meanwhile, Marcus, already 2 years into Stanford on a full ride and family savings, had been gifted a car, a luggage set, and a drone for aerial footage of his project work. At the airport, my dad hugged me awkwardly, one arm stiff behind his back. "Do well," he said, and that was it. But now, after 8 years of silence, they wanted me home. I didn't decide right away. I let the question simmer. That winter, work had slowed down just enough to allow me breathing space. I'd been promoted earlier that year to senior systems lead at Apex Shield, one of the fastest-growing cybersecurity firms on the East Coast. Our clients included 2 Ivy League universities, 3 banks, and a defense contractor I legally couldn't name. I had just closed on a sleek 2-bedroom condo in Clinton Hill. Exposed brick, balcony view, a galley kitchen with matte black fixtures, the kind of place you walk into and feel quietly proud of. Because it's all yours. It wasn't flashy, but it was proof. So yes, I eventually said yes to Christmas. But not because I wanted their approval. I'd stopped chasing that long ago. I said yes because I needed closure. One final scene, not to convince them of anything, but to remind myself that the girl they ignored no longer existed. She'd been replaced by someone they never saw coming. The drive to Portland was long, but not unpleasant. I took it slow, not because I was stalling, but because I needed to prepare. Not a speech, not a strategy, just myself. The version of me that had built a life from blueprints and silence. The one that no longer needed applause. Only peace. The night before I left, I hosted a small dinner with friends. My people. We sat on floor pillows in my new place, sharing pad thai and wine straight from the bottle. Laughter flowed, light and easy. My friend Dana raised her glass and said, "To Nat, the quiet girl who turned her silence into power." And just like that, I knew I could go home, not to seek acceptance, but to prove, silently, that I never needed it in the first place. The neighborhood hadn't changed much. The streets still smelled like damp pine needles. The gas station on the corner still had the same flickering, "Open" sign. And my childhood house still looked like a photo left too long in the sun, faded. Cracked, slightly unreal. The porch light blinked like it had a nervous tick. I stood there for a full minute before knocking. The door opened with a creak. My mother stood in the doorway, her hands still damp from washing something. Her eyes widened. "Natalie," she said, like she'd seen a ghost. "You look different." I smiled, just enough. "It's been a while." She gave me a half hug, all elbows and hesitation, then stepped aside. Inside, everything was the same and somehow smaller. The framed photos on the hallway wall still featured Marcus in every major milestone: prom, graduation, a football trophy from 2006. There were no photos of me. The scent of old potpourri and lemon cleaner filled the living room. Thick and familiar. People were already there, aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't seen since I was 20. The room fell quiet when I entered. Well, someone said from the couch. "Look who finally showed up." I nodded politely, already tired. "Is she wearing sweats?" another whispered. Too loudly. I looked down. Tailored black slacks, a silk blouse, wool coat, quiet luxury, invisible to people looking for price tags. Then, of course, Marcus arrived, grinning from the kitchen, arm around a tall brunette who was visibly pregnant. "Everyone, this is Riley," he beamed, "my wife, and your future niece or nephew." "Congratulations," I said, keeping my voice steady. Marcus smirked. "Still coding away in a basement somewhere?" I smiled faintly. "Something like that." Mom clapped her hands. "Dinner soon. Natalie, put your things down. You'll be on the couch. Marcus is using your old room as his home office." Of course. Dinner was a slow burn of condescension. Uncle Ray nudged me near the sad bowl of cranberry punch. "Your brother's launching a business. Big plans." "That one. You still doing computer stuff?" "I design security systems," I said, "for enterprise-level clients." He blinked. "Oh, sounds technical." It was always like this. As if my job was some strange hobby involving wires and invisible things. Meanwhile, Marcus could talk about an app that didn't exist yet, and everyone treated him like Steve Jobs reincarnated. During dinner, I was seated at the far end, closest to the swinging kitchen door and the trash bin. Marcus held court, as expected. "This idea is going to change everything," he declared, leaning back dramatically. "We just need capital, you know, fuel for the rocket." "How much fuel?" Dad asked. Marcus shrugged like it was pocket change. 200 grand. Nothing crazy. I almost choked on my water. It was a pitch I'd heard a dozen times before, all buzzwords and no back end. I glanced at my plate. The mashed potatoes were cold. "We'll figure it out," Mom said, touching Marcus's hand like he'd just survived a war. "Family helps family." After dinner, Mom handed me a scratchy blanket and pointed to the couch. "There you go, sweetie." I slept badly. The way you do when your body's tired but your mind is pulling fire alarms. The next morning, it happened. Christmas. The tree was overdecorated. Like always, tinsel choking every branch. Marcus and Riley bounded down the stairs like children. Gifts piled under the tree like a department store ad. They tore into wrapping paper, laughing, passing gifts around. I watched from the side, coffee in hand. I had brought gifts for everyone. Simple, elegant things. Scented candles, books with personalized notes, a leather wallet I'd seen Dad admire years ago. They opened mine, surprised. "Natalie, these are beautiful," Mom said, holding up a new cashmere scarf. And then, silence. No one handed me anything. I waited, unsure. Mom gasped. "Oh no, Natalie, I'm so sorry. We must have forgotten." Marcus snorted. "Just like old times. Don't cry this year, okay? You're an adult now." I looked at him, and something settled. Not anger, not sadness, just a clarity so sharp it could have sliced through the morning fog. I reached into my purse and pulled out a small keychain. Held it up, the brushed steel caught the light. What's that? Mom asked. The key, I said, to my apartment. They blinked. You bought one? Dad said, voice tight. I nodded. Last week. Closed on a condo in Clinton Hill. Mom squinted. With what money? My job, I said, matter-of-factly. My company just licensed a security framework I designed to a European bank. My share was around $150. You could hear a fork drop. Marcus's jaw slackened. Riley stopped mid-sip. My mother stared like I'd just announced I had 3 heads. $150? She squeaked. After taxes. Dad sat back slowly. What kind of job pays that? I told you, I said, meeting his eyes. I design software systems for companies that move billions. And just like that, the room changed temperature. Mom's smile returned. Too fast, too sweet. Well, honey, why didn't you ever tell us? We're so proud of you. Dad laughed awkwardly. Marcus, did you hear that? Your sister's working with big companies now. Marcus didn't laugh. Riley leaned in and whispered something. He didn't respond. Mom scooted closer to me. Tell us about the apartment. How many bedrooms? 2. With a balcony. We should visit. She beamed. Family should stick together. I almost laughed. Family. I sipped my coffee instead. I stood up from the couch, brushing invisible crumbs from my pants. I've got a long drive ahead, I said. Mom reached out. Stay a while. We haven't even talked about your career, your projects. You never said anything about this before. I almost smiled. Of course I hadn't. I'd learned years ago that anything I built would only matter to them once they saw a price tag attached. Not when I stayed up coding till dawn. Not when I cried through my first failed deployment. Not even when I got my promotion and signed a lease for a home of my own. Only now, when it was real, in their eyes, meaning expensive, did they care to ask. As I went upstairs to grab my things, I could hear them whispering. Urgent, eager. I knew that tone. It wasn't curiosity, it was calculation. When I came back down, suitcase in hand, they were waiting. Dad stepped forward, clearing his throat like he was about to make a speech. Marcus stood to the side, arms crossed, trying and failing to look casual. Mom sat perched on the arm of the sofa, eyes wide, smile rehearsed. Before you head out, Dad said, we thought maybe we could discuss an opportunity. Here it comes. You know Marcus has this startup idea. He continued, as if I'd somehow forgotten the table-pounding speech from last night. He's really onto something. We just need a little help to get things off the ground. How much? I asked, already knowing. Marcus leaned forward, confident again. Just 200 grand. Honestly, for someone like you, that's nothing. There it was, the slip. For someone like you. As if my work, my stability, my success were some kind of magic trick. As if money had simply fallen into my lap. I looked at them, my parents, who once laughed when Uncle Jim offered me a dishwashing job after graduation. My brother, who spent a decade mocking me, ignoring me, joking that I was the basement girl. His wife, who barely acknowledged me the day before but now watched with raised eyebrows. Like I was a vault about to be cracked open. No, I said, softly. The room stilled. What do you mean? No, Mom asked, the smile already slipping. I mean I'm not giving you $200,000. But we're family, Dad said. I nodded slowly. Where was family when I had to find a roommate on Craigslist because you wouldn't help with housing? Where was family when Marcus got a car and I got a thrift store sweater for Christmas? Where was family when I left for New York alone? And you didn't call for 8 years? Mom's voice pitched up. That was different. You had money, I said. For Marcus. Always. Marcus showed promise. She snapped before catching herself. I mean, we thought a practical path would be better for you. I exhaled through my nose. Calm, measured. You never thought I'd amount to anything, I said, and now that I have. Suddenly you're interested. You're being selfish, Marcus snapped. After everything this family did for you. What did you do? I asked, turning to him. Raise me? Feed me? That's parenting, not charity. And you made sure I knew I was never wanted. The silence after that was almost soothing. I picked up my bag and turned toward the door. You'll regret this, Mom said. I won't, I replied, and I meant it. By the time I hit the highway, my phone had started buzzing. Text after text, calls, guilt trips dressed as check-ins. I pulled into a rest stop halfway through the drive, opened my contact list, and began blocking numbers. One by one, each click felt like brushing off a layer of old dust. When I got back to Brooklyn, the city lights looked a little softer. The apartment felt warmer than I remembered. I poured myself a glass of wine and curled up on the couch, watching the skyline flicker with holiday lights. The tree in the park below was glowing red and gold. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I was free. The next morning, Sarah called, Olivia's younger sister and my only real connection to the family these days. I heard what happened, she said. I'm sorry. Don't be. I told her. It was the best gift they ever gave me. She laughed. Your mom's already telling everyone you're ungrateful. That you've gone cold and cruel. Let her, I said. She's spent her whole life crafting narratives. This is just a new chapter. In the days that followed, the messages came in waves. Aunt Cecilia texted me to say how disappointed she was. Uncle Mike asked if I really refused to help Marcus start something meaningful. My cousin Jenna messaged just to say she always knew I was a little self-centered. One by one, I blocked them all, except Sarah. She called again that week. Breathless. It's chaos, she said. Your mom's going on about how you forgot where you came from. Of course she is. Do you care? No, I said honestly. I cut them off a long time ago. This just made it official. That night, I went to a little wine bar with my friends. The kind of place where the booths are worn in leather and fairy lights drip from the ceiling like rain. We toasted. To chosen family, I said. To chosen family, they echoed, smiling. 6 months passed like a slow exhale. The snow melted. Cherry blossoms bloomed along the sidewalk near my building. I started sleeping through the night, really sleeping. The kind where you wake up without tension behind your eyes. Where the silence in your apartment feels like peace, not absence. I'd started journaling again, not the kind of writing that tries to solve things. Just documenting, naming moments, giving space to what was. Sometimes I'd look back at my entries from college, how I used to wonder if I was broken, if I'd ever belong anywhere. Now, I saw those pages not as proof of weakness, but as evidence of growth. I'd built something no one could take away from me. Then one afternoon in early summer, I met someone. His name was Elijah. We were both waiting for oat milk lattes at a coffee shop 2 blocks from my office. He wore quiet colors, navy, gray, forest green. He had kind eyes and didn't interrupt when I spoke. That felt rare. He worked freelance, UX design mostly. Sometimes branding work for nonprofits. He understood long hours, late night debugging, the thrill of solving invisible problems. But more than that, he understood silence. He had walked away from his own toxic family a few years earlier. We didn't talk about it right away, it came out slowly. Like fog lifting, there was no need to explain the exhaustion of pretending, or the guilt that clings even when you know you did the right thing. He got it. By fall, we were sharing weekends, walks through Fort Greene Park, grocery runs that turned into recipe experiments. He didn't need to fix me, just witnessed me, exactly as I was. And work? Work was thriving. I'd been promoted again, lead architect on a multi-year AI security integration for a Fortune 100 company. The kind of project that once felt mythic, now had my name on it. My team respected me. My ideas didn't just get heard, they got built. My old imposter syndrome still visited sometimes, especially at night, but it no longer stayed for dinner. It knew it wasn't welcome here anymore. 1 month later, a familiar number lit up my phone. Marcus. I stared at it for a moment. Then, against my better judgment, I answered. Hey, he said, far too chipper. I didn't speak, just thought we could catch up. He added, what do you want, Marcus? A pause. Then, I think Madison should meet her aunt. I blinked. You named her Madison? Yeah, things are tight right now. We're still at mom and dad's. The house needs work. It's just a lot. I waited. Anyway, he added quickly. You don't even know how much it's falling apart. It doesn't matter, I said, and hung up. Blocked the number again. Elijah watched me from the couch, mug in hand. You okay? I nodded. It's strange. I thought I'd feel something. Anger, maybe, or guilt. And? Nothing. Just peace. He smiled. That's how you know you're healing. A week later, Sarah called. They're still telling everyone you abandoned the family. She sighed. That you changed. I have changed, I said. They just don't like that the change wasn't for them. She laughed. But it was bittersweet. They turned your old room into a nursery. It never felt like mine anyway. We talked a while longer. She told me she'd finally applied for a graduate program in psychology. I told her I'd support her however I could. Real support, no guilt attached. That night, I posted a picture on Instagram, nothing dramatic. Just a photo of Elijah and me laughing on the balcony. Wine glasses in hand, city lights glowing behind us. Sarah messaged 2 minutes later. Mom saw your post. Says it's typical. You'd rather vacation than help family. Good, I wrote back. Maybe she'll finally get it. Then came the call from my boss. You're moving up, she said, head of engineering. The board just signed off. Top 1% salary, stock options, my own division. I told Elijah that night. He didn't ask how much I'd be making. He said, you earned it, let's celebrate. We ordered sushi. He brought home champagne. I leaned back on the balcony and said, maybe we should buy a house. He raised an eyebrow. You ready for that? I think so. A yard, a dog, quiet mornings. My phone buzzed. Another message from Sarah. Your mom says you must be a drug dealer. No one makes that kind of money from computers. I laughed so hard I snorted. Let them think what they want. They'd spent years crafting a version of me they could ignore. Now, they were creating one they could resent. Neither was the real me. The real me was building something no one else understood, not a company. Not a brand. A life. A real, steady, love-filled life. On my terms. It's been nearly a year now since that Christmas morning. The one where I watched my family forget me again, only this time. I let them. The same people who once acted like I didn't exist now paint me as the villain in their version of the story. I'm the ungrateful daughter. The cold sister. The selfish success who forgot where she came from. But the truth? I didn't forget where I came from. I just refused to stay there. I remember exactly what it felt like to be the girl at the end of the table. To receive nothing, not even acknowledgement, while everyone else unwrapped affection. To have ambition dismissed, curiosity mocked, and independence mistaken for rebellion. I didn't walk away because I was angry. I walked away because I was done begging to be seen. I built my life, piece by piece, from that quiet place. The place they pushed me into. And now that it's something they recognize as valuable, they want in. But it's too late. I've spent the last 12 months learning what it means to belong without performing. To be loved without proving. To build joy without apology. Elijah and I just moved into our new home last week. It's not huge, but it's ours. It has a little garden out back and a bench under a tree where the light hits just right in the morning. We adopted a rescue dog named Miso who likes to sleep with his head on my foot while I work. There are days when I look around, the warm kitchen. The books stacked messily by the window. The sound of laughter from our friends in the next room, and I realize, this is what family is supposed to feel like. It isn't obligation. It's safety. It's presence. It's people who don't disappear when you say no. People who don't only see your worth when it benefits them. If you've ever felt like the invisible one in your family. If you've ever sat quietly while others were celebrated. If you've ever swallowed your voice so that others could feel bigger. I want you to hear me now. You're not broken. You were never the problem. You were simply in the wrong room. Surrounded by people who didn't know how to hold your light without trying to dim it. You don't have to stay in those rooms anymore. You don't have to play roles that suffocate you. You don't have to earn what you already deserve. Walk away if you need to. Start over if you must. You'll be amazed at what grows in the silence they once left you with. I know, because I did it. Today, I still get messages from cousins I haven't spoken to in years. A few curious, some passive-aggressive, some just bold enough to ask what they really want. Can we talk about an opportunity? I don't respond, because I'm not here to prove anything anymore. I'm here to live, to love, to keep building, and to remind anyone else who's felt like I once did, unseen, small, forgotten, that your story isn't over just because they stopped reading it. You get to write the next chapter. And if you're ready to turn the page, I'll be here, cheering you on. If this story felt like a mirror, even just a little, leave a comment. Tell me what you walked away from. What you're building now. And if no one's told you this yet, I see you. You matter. You were always enough, even before they noticed.